Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speak, Film, and Enter, a podcast where we review and rank movies. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
And I am Adam.
And today we've got the Roundup for you from balmy Minneapolis.
Where it's 94 degrees and feels like 105.
Yeah. Luckily, we're all indoors, although I believe Dylan is in a non-air-conditioned room, so we'll see if we lose him at some point.
I was outdoors for at least 8 hours today, so my brain's a little fried, so I'll help. You guys might have to carry the podcast a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. So, we've got the July Roundup for you after, I believe, missing June. We try not to miss Roundups, but had some trips planned in the middle of the summer. Just didn't really get to it. So diving into the Roundup today, if you haven't joined us for one of these before, we just use this as a space to talk about basically all the movies that we watched that we didn't review. There's a lot of some new stuff that we watch that we don't do full episodes for, and also just a lot of old movies that we watch that we don't do episodes for, although we are starting to do some of those now. We do have a second channel that we started specifically for older movies called Exploring Cinema. That is YouTube only at the moment, just to kind of experiment and see where it goes. So if you like what we do here, definitely go check that out. That'll help us out a lot. And we think it'll be kind of a fun channel to just sort of, we're not tied to any release dates or anything like that. Just kind of whatever we feel like watching, whatever we think is interesting, little different format. We'll have sort of a shared episode pretty soon that we post on both channels to show people here on Speak, Film, and Enter kind of what we're doing over on Exploring Cinema. But,
I was going to say a fun note with Exploring Cinema is we don't have the same kind of rating scale that we have here. And I don't want to divulge too much because I think it's pretty fun. But it's not tied to, oh, this is really good. It's a 5-star movie. This is really bad. It's a 1-star movie. It's just a different type of thing. And it's more laid back. So I think if you're into that sort of thing, check it out, see how I feel about it. And just, it's more of us just chatting about movies instead of like trying to critique or anything like that.
Yeah, more of a discussion than a review. I would say.
Yeah.
So to provide some type of structure to the Roundup, we break the movies into 4 categories. Dylan, would you like to tell the people what the 4 categories are?
Yes, we have best new watch, best rewatch, dud of the month, and then 4th category is movies we just feel we want to talk about. So open to wide interpretation.
Yes, so we can dive right in with best new watch, and I can start if that's cool with you guys.
Absolutely.
So I had a lot of really good movies that I watched for the first time this month, and I'm going to kind of rattle a bunch of these off, and there are 2 that I really want to talk about, but there are a lot of movies that I gave 4 stars or higher to, so all of those I at least want to mention.
Rattle them.
One of them is Oppenheimer, which we have a full episode out for. You can go check out our full thoughts on that, but I love that movie. And then I watched Blowout, the De Palma movie with John Travolta and Joan Allen.
You watched the Travolta one?
Yeah.
And?
4 stars, liked it a lot. If anybody out there has ever seen The Parallax View, I think if you like The Parallax View, you'd love Blowout. And conversely, if you love Blowout, I would recommend seeking out The Parallax View. Just another sort of paranoid political thriller. I think they go very well together.
Real quick, the Travolta one or the original? Which one did you like more?
Oh, Blow Up. You mean the other that we watched? I like Blowout better, but I do like Blowout better. But Blow Up stuck in my mind for a few days just because I feel like there's something to crack there that I haven't quite been able to do yet. It's an interesting movie for sure, but I'd Blowout easily.
Yeah, young Travolta. Kind of cool.
Joan Allen really good, and what's his name? John Lithgow is terrifying.
Yes, John Lithgow was way against type. Yeah, Adam, you would like this movie.
Okay, Blowout.
Blowout
from 80, 81, somewhere in there.
I'll look it up real fast.
Yeah, and then while you're looking that up, I guess another political thriller that I watched right before Oppenheimer was JFK, which is Oliver Stone, 3 hours long, Kevin Costner, and a zillion other A-list actors and great character actors. I gave that 4 out of 5 stars. That could go up on a rewatch. I think it's really, really well done. It's just kind of rare for a movie that long to leave me wanting to immediately watch it again, which is kind of what Oppenheimer did. So half star above JFK. And then Bringing Up Baby from 1938, I believe, with Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, a Howard Hawks comedy. Just delightful. Such. Anytime a movie is that old and still makes me laugh that much, I'm just very impressed.
Yeah.
And Cary Grant, just again, he's phenomenal.
Oh,
and if you're ever curious about giving like an old Hollywood comedy a try, bringing up you could do a lot worse than Bringing Up Baby. So highly recommend that one.
Yeah.
And then the two that I really wanted to dive into, the first one is Martin Scorsese movie from 1985 called After Hours.
Yep, I saw you check this one out.
Yeah, Criterion just released their 4K Blu-ray special edition of After Hours. So I did watch this thinking like, am I going to want to buy that eventually? And I very well might. I mean, this just felt like, I mean, it's not really similar to like With Nail and I or anything like that, but just kind of feels like it fits comfortably in this kind of like cult underground, sort of like grungy 80s comedy that not a lot of people our age seem to have heard of. And even the cast, like Griffin Dunn, Rosanna Arquette, Cheech and Chong are in it, which is amazing.
Okay.
What's a brief synopsis? What's it about?
Yeah, an ordinary word processor has the worst night of his life after he agrees to visit a girl in Soho whom he met that evening at a coffee shop. And most of the evening just results in him trying to get home and mishaps ensue. So it's like kind of a really dark, like grungy, urban, like Wizard of Oz almost.
Okay.
Interesting.
And it gets funnier as it goes because it gets more and more ridiculous. Catherine O'Hara shows up at one point.
Excellent.
Terry Garr is in it, and she's fantastic. Another guy that I recognize, John Hurd.
Oh, really?
Is in the movie. Yeah, he plays Tom the bartender.
Excellent.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great role for John Hurt.
So I would highly recommend this to both of you.
Okay. What's it called again? I'm going to write that down.
After Hours. And it's short, too. It's 97 minutes.
I've almost watched it a few times. There's like almost a whole subgenre of movies that are just Scorsese movies that I haven't watched but want to watch and just haven't gotten around to. Yep. This one, Bring Out the Dead, Silence. Like he's got a whole.
See, I might get to Mean Streets soon because that's on my list.
I finally crossed that one off the list.
I know. I almost watched
that one with you.
I almost watched them both on the same night. But yeah, I like this movie a lot, and it definitely feels like the kind of movie if you discovered it with like 2 or 3 of your friends that could just become like one of those movies that the group of you just always watches together.
Or just feels like only you guys know about it. So it becomes this like inside joke thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So really love that one. And then outside of Oppenheimer, my favorite new movie that I watched this month, shocking to me, was My Darling Clementine. John Ford movie from 1946.
Yes.
Starring Henry Fonda. And I wasn't familiar with like the story of Wyatt Earp at all. I mean, I had heard the name before, but I didn't, and I had heard Tombstone before, and I had heard the OK Corral before. I didn't know they were all part of the same story.
Okay.
So then watching this movie was just fascinating for me to constantly be like, oh, I've heard of this. I've heard of this. I've heard of that. And then also, I don't know if either of you have seen Support Your Local Sheriff.
I have not.
No.
Great Western parody. James Garner.
Yeah.
There are elements of that movie that are pulled straight from My Darling Clementine.
Okay.
So that was also fun to see.
And for you, was it nice to watch a classic John Ford Western and actually enjoy it?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, that's good. I'm glad. I'm glad you.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, no John Wayne definitely helped. Henry Fonda's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just a much more interesting story than like something that's going to lead to the big shootout at the end, which this kind of does, but it's also barely about that at all.
Yeah.
It's a lot about like society coming to the West and kind of the changes that will make and how people are sort of living there at the moment before society catches up with these small, dusty towns out there.
See, and that's why you talking about it like that makes me think that you might dig some of the Sam Peckinpah westerns that came later in the late 60s and 70s, because he very much engages in that idea of like, right when society was about to catch up and the old West was officially going to be like dead. You know, what does that mean for all these old cowboys out there?
Right.
Yeah. We have life and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, just Henry Fonda's amazing, which he's great in everything he does. I don't think I've ever seen him in a movie that I didn't like.
Yeah.
So those were my best new watches of the month.
All right. Over to Adam.
Sure. Because we did miss June, and it's obviously summer, and I don't get to as much stuff in the summer. I'm going to pull some stuff from June, as well as this July. So my best. Say that again.
Yeah, never mind. No, continue.
My best new watch is obviously Oppenheimer. We already talked about that. My best new watches, I have 3, and they're all stuff that we've talked about, unfortunately. But The Wind Rises, Asteroid City, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I have gone back and kind of rethought about those and updated my star ratings on Letterboxd, and I've given those all 4.5s.
Nice.
Across the Spider-Verse was incredible. The animation was unparalleled. Asteroid City, the more I think about it, the more I just go think so fondly of it and be like, damn, I just really liked that one. Like I mean, I gave it a 4 right away, and I haven't re-seen it, but the more I think about it.
I've watched it 4 times now.
Oh my God,
Jesus, man. Oh my God. But yeah, it's just quirky. It's perfect Wes Anderson, peak Wes Anderson, and it's so much fun. And then The Wind Rises was just a beautiful movie. As close as I've gotten to a 5 in a very, very long time. So, and
again, we do have a full episode for that, by the way, over at Exploring Cinema.
Yeah, so check that out. Really, really enjoyed all 3 of those. So those are my best new watches.
Nice.
Over to me. Yeah, some of my best new watches were movies we've already talked about, like you mentioned, Oppenheimer, and then The Wind Rises, which I would just like to give another shout out to, and you should check out that episode where we discuss it, because it's really just a really beautiful film. But the one that the last one I wanted to talk about, though, is one that you guys saw and did an episode on, and were way ahead of me, and I finally caught up, and that is Past Lives.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So bummer that I did not see it in time to be on that episode with you. But it's amazing. It's so good.
It's very good.
So freaking good. It's so like mature. And I think in your review of it, Nate, you called it like very like adult. And it's just from the very beginning, it never once kind of falls into what you would expect, or what a Hollywood movie, or just anything that would happen where you would feel like is even a tiny stretch. That just never happens. Everything is just it just feels so real and so just like honest, and like that's enough for the story to have meaning. It doesn't need to have a climactic, amazing moment, or this or a that, or like any of the classic dynamic that you think would play out. Because I mean, the situation here and what we're talking about has been done in like romantic comedies a lot, and romantic dramas. Like there's a version of this that could be a wacky screwball romantic comedy.
Absolutely.
With Ryan Reynolds and whoever, but instead it's just handled like so seriously, and it's just hard not to. It just totally like grabbed me, and I've been definitely thinking about it. I like how there's certain stuff that can kind of be left up to your kind of ambiguity and kind of your opinion on it. I feel like it would be a very interesting rewatch, like knowing how it ends, checking it out again. But yeah, I just thought it was really, really well done, lived up to the hype, and one of my favorite movies of the year.
Awesome. Love to hear that.
Yeah,
me too.
Moving on to best rewatch. For me, Asteroid City, I've watched multiple times now, and it gets better every single time I watch it. This is why I mentioned how much I love Wes Anderson, though, because I find his movies just like endlessly rewatchable, and they all get better every time I watch them. So, Adam, I look forward to one day kind of going through some of the ones with you that you haven't seen yet that are among like some of my favorite movies. And then the big one for me, though, was The Wind Rises, because I saw that like a year or so after it came out, and I didn't really like it that much.
Okay.
And I just remember finding it kind of dull and maybe not exactly what I was expecting. I think I watched it after like I was going through a big run of Ghibli movies, and kind of after seeing things that are more fantastical. Like I watched it after like Castle in the Sky and like Princess Mononoke and Totoro.
Okay.
And it was so different that I really didn't like it. And I was thrilled to watch this again and realize how wrong I was, because it's a wonderful movie that a lot of people should go check out, especially with Oppenheimer out right now. A lot of very similar themes going through The Wind Rises. And Miyazaki has a new movie coming out later this year in the US as well. So what better time to rewatch The Wind Rises?
Excellent.
Yeah. Again, love that movie. So big
Yeah,
fan.
Wind
I'm
Rises.
glad you enjoyed it.
If you haven't checked it out and you're listening to this podcast, The Wind Rises is really good.
Yeah.
And then go find that other channel of ours.
Yeah.
And do it.
Check it out.
My best rewatch, I rewatched Bullet Train, the movie from this with Brad Pitt and all those others. It's more fun than I gave it credit for. I liked it the first time around. I was like, okay, this is kind of quirky, kind of fun. Brad Pitt plays kind of like a bumbling idiot assassin, trying to get out, or just trying to find zen in that world. Not really being able to. And it's just a ball of fun. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular to really grab you, because action movies end up being kind of their own vibe anyway. And it's like having Clementine, and it's a blast.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's going for that energy of just entertainment, fast-paced action. I mean, almost kind of what like the newer Mission Impossibles have kind of brought into their recipe. And yeah, it's a good time. So yeah, I've almost rewatched it a few times since it dropped on streaming.
Yeah, it's worth it.
One of these summer nights, it's gonna be the evening.
Yeah, a little bit of bit comedy in there, like between some of the characters, and like that'll always pull me in.
The Zazie Beetz fight sequence, Michael Shannon showing up. I mean,
I forgot Michael Shannon.
Right? Plays a hardcore Russian badass.
Yeah.
Check that out. That was fun. So
nice.
Over to you.
All right. So speaking of fun, my first favorite rewatch of the month was when we all went and saw Wild at Heart with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern as Sailor and Lula on the run, just passionately in love, having sex, just living on the edge,
dancing in the desert.
You
flipping over cars.
Is one of the creepiest characters in movie history. I mean, talk about like you can tell David Lynch just like unleashed Willem Dafoe's inner like weirdness and was like, you do it as weird as you want. I think the top comment from the Letterboxd is like, when Willem Dafoe calls you Mr. Big Round Balls, you get in the damn car. But no, just that was fun. It was fun because it's David Lynch, just bizarre, surreal, two huge actors when they were way younger, just playing off each other. It's funny, it's weird, it's very horny, but yeah, the movie. Glad we all got to watch that together. That's a movie. See, if you had just each watched that on your own and then we just would have talked about it, wouldn't have been the same.
No,
both of those David Lynch movies, I would have been like, that was tough. Like
when Nick Cage does a front flip out of that Cadillac, we all needed to be together for that.
Yeah, we're like, oh shit,
glorious moment.
All right, and then my other one was Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol. Checked it out with our buddy Jay, who had never seen it. The sequence on the side of the building, classic, and just kind of you could tell sparked this new run of just really entertaining, well-made Mission Impossible movies. So that was a fun time.
Nice.
Awesome. I forgot about Jeremy Renner. I had forgotten.
Yeah.
He plays a.
I rewatched Rogue Nation later that week with the same mutual friend, and had kind of spaced out that Jeremy Renner's in that movie.
Yep.
And they were just like, we don't really need him anymore.
No.
Well, he's all broken right now anyway, so.
Yeah, that's true.
All that too.
Poor man.
Yeah. All right. So, dud of the month.
Moving on to dud of the month. And I really only had one movie that I watched this month that just really kind of fell flat and didn't meet expectations for me, and that is Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Oh.
Have either of you ever seen that?
I don't think so. Let me look
I've
it
heard
up.
good things.
So this is a Sidney Lumet movie from 2007. He was like 82, 83, I think. It's the last movie he directed. And Philip Seymour Hoffman and Ethan Hawke play a pair of brothers who decide to rob their parents' jewelry store. And then it's kind of one of those, and then this goes wrong, and then this goes wrong, and then this goes wrong sort of movies. Marissa Tomei is in it as well, and Albert Finney, Michael Shannon. Yep.
Nice.
It does something interesting structurally that I found. I thought it worked at first, but it did it too much, and it became really tired for me as the movie went along. And then I didn't love the way it wrapped up. And there's just kind of a gap in there where there's sort of this. It's one of those movies that I feel like kind of characters tell you what or kind of who or what kind of person another character is without you having seen it yet. And you don't like, it just sort of feels like, okay, Ethan Hawke is the screw up.
Yeah.
And like we watch him mess up, but it all feels performative. Like we don't have a lot of like, why doesn't he have any money? Like he has a job. Like there's a gap there for me in just saying he's a screw up and then everybody treating him like one versus having enough evidence to actually make that believable. And that type of thing happens several times over the course of the movie, I thought, and it just doesn't do enough to fill in those gaps for me. So it all just felt a little bit like they're that way because we say they are.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting. So this is the same guy who's known for 12 Angry Men, Serpico, and Dog Day Afternoon.
Oh, Sidney Lumet is phenomenal.
OG.
Yeah. So do you think this was just like a dud on his part, or was that like bad writing? Or
I mean,
like, what do you think?
A lot of people really like it. There's really interesting themes. The performances are phenomenal. Interesting plot. It definitely sort of follows through on the whole just characters digging themselves into deeper and deeper holes element. I just really felt like the characters were kind of lacking, and I really got tired of the structural choice that the movie makes. Where kind of like you watch for like 15 minutes this one thing unfold, and then it like sort of does this like zoom in on a character and kind of like the screen like sort of starts to freeze, and then it goes back and shows you like how that character got to that point, but it does it with like 4 different characters like multiple times over the course, and it just keeps doing it, and to where I never felt like I was just, I don't know, I didn't care for that. But a lot of people seem to really like this movie too, so I don't know. I think I didn't dislike it so much to the point where I would say like absolutely don't watch this movie.
Gotcha.
It just more fell into, it just didn't quite do it for me.
Okay.
A lot of those. Okay.
All right. Over to Adam.
Okay. So this is the one I have that's a dud. It's kind of the same thing. A lot of interesting things with this movie, and it's a new one. It's a new A24 movie. It's a new horror movie called Talk to Me. I didn't hate it. The first 2/3 of the movie are super interesting. The structure is really cool. The concept is really interesting. The way in which they film some of this stuff, there's some cool camera stuff with like a group of people, and then it's basically they found like a dismembered hand that you can talk to dead people with, right? That's the premise. And so they do some stuff like, because they're all at a party and these kids treat it like the new fun like activity to do when you're with like a group of kids. And it's usually, the hoodlums or the people who get up to stuff, the kids in high school who are drinking and smoking weed and stuff and not. So it's that
talking to dead people,
just do whatever.
Yeah.
And so like when they sit down and they kind of swivel the camera, they do some fun stuff there. It's just, it didn't really stick the landing for me. I don't really know like what it was trying to say. It's fun. It's interesting. It just kind of falls flat at the end, in my opinion. But we might do an episode on it, so I might not say too much more. But that's really kind of the general feeling. Is I think I ended up giving it like a 2.5 or a 3 somewhere.
Yeah, I think I liked it a little better than you. I pretty much agreed with everything you said. I thought the first 2/3 were fantastic.
It sucks you in for sure.
It just kind of like the last third of the movie feels like what happens doesn't really match what the themes of the movie felt like they were.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see if we talk about that a little bit more in depth. Obviously, that'd be a spoiler episode because we're doing enough of it here. But yeah, that was my dud for the last 2 months.
Dylan.
All right, I have 2 duds. One of them is The Flash, which I did check out.
I saw you brave your way through this.
Still, but
yeah, I mean, it just really didn't.
It's not the greatest superhero movie ever made.
It definitely is not that. Weird CGI fight scenes. The Michael Keaton cameo did nothing for me. The plot is a bunch more time travel, cause and effect, kind of ripple, mumbo jumbo. And I just felt like I saw where it was going pretty early, like really early. And I don't know. It's the only thing it has going for it, which is kind of what other people have said, is that Ezra Miller, despite apparently just being a real piece of work in real life, is a really good Flash. And like,
he's a really good actor.
That's what it sounds like too. Yeah.
Yeah. He single-handedly carries, he makes the jokes work just with his delivery, and he tries his best. I mean, they give him like 100 jokes to nail, and they're not great jokes, and he nails like 60% of them, 70% of them, and it's like, all right, good job.
Return.
You're telling me the DC movie wasn't really that well written?
It sure wasn't. And then to keep the theme of this episode going, Michael Shannon as General Zod shows up.
He's back.
Yeah, I know.
The Michael Shannon episode.
We might have to do a
Roundup.
We should do it the actors. What's the
Life of an Actor?
Life of an Actor.
Life of an Actor. We should do a
feel
Michael
like I'd have
Shannon
to watch so many movies, and it would be so many like bit characters. I don't know how well that would work, but it's an interesting idea.
That's an interesting idea.
It's like what, the 4th movie's come up on already. So sorry.
But yeah, no, it just didn't do much for me. So very average. And then the other one is a movie that actually was going to be in our last segment or section, the movies we just want to talk about. But when I was thinking about what I want to talk about, it was all negative. So I was like, you know what? So it got promoted or demoted to Dud of the Month.
Definitely demoted.
Yeah, but moved up in the order of the segment.
Order of events.
And that's Solaris, the 2002 remake of the 1970s Tarkovsky.
Soderbergh did this, right?
Yes, Steven Soderbergh.
Okay, I saw you watch this.
Yep, and I've seen the original, and I really like the original. It is just so well done. I mean, I just think it's beautiful, and the writing. I mean, it's Tarkovsky, so it's very dense Russian philosophical stuff, but like it's very interesting, and the stuff he's able to do visually for being made, I believe in like 1972 is the original or something crazy.
Sounds
right. Is insane. And with this one, for one, with a 30-year head start, with a 30-year advantage in CGI and effects, the planet Solaris does not look as cool as it does in the Tarkovsky movie. So they got beaten on special effects, even though they had a huge advantage. And then the story, they've condensed it into like a 90-minute movie. It has one of the fastest opening, like there's like exposition, like literally you meet George Clooney, a minute and a half in, 2 people show up at his door and they're like, hey, we have this message for you. And it's from his friend who's an astronaut who's on a space station outside Solaris. And he's like, George, I need you. Some weird stuff's going on. And then we get like
when you get those messages?
Yeah. And then we get like a 5-second like CGI spaceship. And then George is like, hello? And he's on the space station. 4 minutes into the movie. I swear to God, I was just like, wow, dude. Like that's like 35 minutes of the Tarkovsky movie. You know,
that's like if you're doing an episode of Archer.
Yeah. Just like, and then I don't know. Everything it's interesting because with George Clooney as the leading man, and then you also have a young Viola Davis as basically the other astronaut who hasn't completely lost her marbles and has to figure out what's going on. So you're like, okay, that's a great duo. But then like, I don't know, the love story part of it is lame and not very well done. And everything's just kind of, like I said, just very condensed. It's just things happen like too fast. And then the only other member of the crew is this third guy who's meant to be like comic relief. But the joke is just that he speaks in a lot of mumbo jumbo. And then like Viola Davis or George Clooney will be like, yeah, okay. And then move on to the next scene. So it's like, part of what made the first one so kind of what it is, the dense philosophical, like really kind of weird sci-fi ideas that they're talking about. In the Steven Soderbergh one, it's just like comic relief. Like, what's he talking about? Like this guy. I don't know. I didn't like it. So
That's
the more I
super
thought about
unfortunate.
it, the worse it goes. Which is interesting because you get George Clooney in a sci-fi thing, out in the space station. I'm like, okay, this could work.
Yeah.
And then I see Viola Davis, I'm like, okay, and it just
That character sounds like Benicio del Toro in The Usual Suspects.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just like talks kind of funny, and everybody's like, okay, guy.
Whatever,
yeah, and
dude.
then imagine if that had been like a remake of like a Orson Welles where that character actually had a lot to say.
Like
And then
Arthur
they're just like,
Penn or
no,
something.
no.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay.
So those are my 2 duds of the month for sure. The Flash and the Solaris remake.
All right. Movies we want to talk about. I've got 3 here.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is a brand new movie on Netflix called They Cloned Tyrone, which is
I want to see that.
So much fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think the funniest dialogue of any 2023 movie so far.
Wow.
It's got John Boyega, Tiana Paris, Jamie Foxx, Kiefer Sutherland shows up at one point.
Nice.
And it's just a series of eerie events thrust an unlikely trio onto the trail of a nefarious government conspiracy lurking directly beneath their neighborhood. And so it's just kind of like Black Neighborhood, kind of like Scooby-Doo almost.
Excellent.
Like it's so much fun. Highly recommend. That just feels like such a wide appeal kind of movie. So if you're just kind of sitting at home and looking for something to watch, like go check out They Cloned Tyrone on Netflix. And then I want to mention a couple screwball comedies that I watched specifically for their ability to do something possibly better than I've ever seen somebody do that one thing before. The first one I'll mention is called Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. And it's a Pedro Almodovar movie from 1988. And it has the funniest TV commercial I've ever seen in my life. I would be shocked if anybody ever writes a better one. I don't really want to necessarily say what it is, but it is just A+ level work.
Okay.
I mean, the movie is really good anyway, but like that thing is amazing. And it's about laundry detergent.
Okay.
And then the other one, Dylan, is a movie that you and I watched together. And that is the Bogdanovich movie, What's Up, Doc? From 1972 with Barbara Streisand and Ryan O'Neal, Madeline Kahn, and a whole bunch of other comic actors of the era, and the funniest car chase ever put to the big screen.
Yeah.
I feel pretty comfortable saying that. I've been trying to think of a funnier, like it feels comparable. I guess if you want to qualify like Raising Arizona as a car chase, but I don't quite, because he's running for a lot of, like, it's a chase and it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's not strictly a car chase.
But oh my god, Dylan and I were dying. There were like what 4 or 5 moments that we paused and rewound like while we were watching it.
It's like exhilarating and really funny, and it kind of like comes out of nowhere in the movie. And I was enjoying the movie, but then when that happened, like me and Nate were blown away. And then after it was over, we were both just like, wow, that was how you do a car chase.
Also, just by itself puts it up there with like the best movies ever set in San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Great.
It's just stunningly good. And yeah, like you said, it sort of just comes out of left field like a little bit. With just the style of it, but it just works so well. And I didn't want it to end. That was like usually with car chases, I'm kind of like, okay, it's been like 5-10 minutes, even like we can wrap this up. It just kept getting funnier and funnier and funnier, and I was just like, how long are they gonna keep going for? Are they gonna keep nailing this? And the end of it is also amazing.
Yeah, it's great. We don't want to ruin it, but yeah. We're checking out that alone.
So what were those 3 again?
They Cloned Tyrone on Netflix, and then Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, a Spanish movie by Pedro Almodovar, and then What's Up, Doc? 1972, Peter Bogdanovich, screwball comedy, very much in honor of something like Bringing Up Baby. There are even like 2 moments in the first 10 minutes of the movie where I looked at Dylan and I said, like, that is directly from Bringing Up Baby. So he was kind of paying homage to the screwball comedies of like the 30s and 40s, and I think he did a really good job.
Excellent. The movie I just want to talk about, we did an episode on, I'm not going to say too much more. It's Oppenheimer. I mean, what a huge movie for the year. Nolan does it again. It's just wonderful in nearly every aspect. I gave it a 4.5. I think we all really liked it. Dylan went on a tear and watched some documentaries and stuff about even that. So it sparks more interest than just what it shows you. It's phenomenal. I haven't seen Barbie yet, so it's probably the best movie of the year. Barbie's getting a ton of buzz, and it's in the zeitgeist, but so is Oppenheimer, and I think Oppenheimer is absolutely A+ quality. So that's all I want to say there.
Yeah, and great segue over to me. The one I want to talk about is that documentary that I watched right after Oppenheimer called The Day After Trinity. You can watch it on the Criterion app, or I believe it's on YouTube, or like most of it is. I mean, you can probably find it. It's a documentary from 1981. Very straightforward, old documentary style, classic narrator. But what I will say is it makes a fantastic companion to Oppenheimer. Whether you watch it before or after, because I watched it after, and the characters that I had just met and I knew what had happened, now I get to see them in real life giving an interview. And the style is it's not, they brought them all into a nice, clean, polished studio and they're all wearing, it's all like they went to like their house or their office. So it's just everything feels so lived in. Everything feels like, I don't know, you just get such a real sense of this epic, incredible story that you just watched Christopher Nolan dramatize and make it this big spectacle. But this documentary is more like it's giving you straight facts, boom, 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 and I just found it fascinating. It's an hour and a half, but it just cruises right by. And if you watch Oppenheimer and you're still just itching for something, I think it's literally the perfect companion for it.
All right,
that's The Day After Trinity.
The Day After Trinity. Yep.
Okay.
Well, there you have it.
The
July roundup is complete.
Yes, well done, well done. Whose turn is it to put a wrap on this wonderful show?
It would be mine.
All right, Nate, take it away.
Adam, y'all ready to go?
Yep, ready to go.
All right,
Nate, take it away.
The uglier the art, the more it's worth.